To Peru now, where the human rights organization Amnesty International has accused security forces of committing human rights violations during anti-government protests. At least 48 people have been killed in clashes between demonstrators and police since unrest broke out on December 7th. That followed the impeachment and arrest of former President Pedro Castillo. Protesters have been demanding the resignation of his replacement, President Dina Boluarte, the dissolution of parliament, fresh elections, and a new constitution.
Everything must be ready in case someone gets injured at the protests in Lima. Kevin Godensi is part of a team of brigadistas, skilled medical staff and students. They're volunteers, and they often get caught in the crossfire.
It's sad because when these protests started, we noticed that the police started using tear gas on innocent old people and also children. That was really painful for us because they were the ones who were most affected. But on other days, we also saw how protesters started attacking. Very small groups, though.
For weeks, Lima and the south of Peru have seen protests turn violent. Dozens have died in clashes with the police. Others, like Micaela, got away with an injury. To protect her identity, we changed her name and won't show her face. Micaela attended many of the protests in Lima until the 28th of January. She was wounded in the head after police started encircling protesters, dispersing tear gas and allegedly firing rubber bullets.
A very hard object hit my head. It was one of these cartridges with tear gas. I fell to the ground, it injured my head, and I started bleeding.
A member of the Brigadista squad took care of her.
I was in shock because I was afraid that the police would shoot me with more gas. They were shooting it at anyone they could see in that moment. It didn't matter what you were doing at that point, and people were just trying to get away. So I was scared, and I said to the brigadista, "They will kill us," and begged him to take me to a hospital.
Micaela was one of several wounded that day. One man died from a head injury allegedly caused by a tear gas cartridge. Micaela is now struggling with panic attacks, trauma and sleepless nights. And she is too scared to report her case. Human rights groups have condemned the disproportionate use of force by police in Peru. DW asked the Lima Police Department why officers seem to be aiming their weapons directly at people during the protests.
The weapons that the police carry are not lethal, and they are there to aim at people's bodies. That's what they are there for. We don't use lethal weapons, and lethal weapons that are used in criminal acts are used to aim at bodies too. They don't shoot in the air or at the floor.
Protests in Peru seem to be far from over. Brigadistas like Kevin Godensi will keep on taking care of the victims, no matter which side they're on.
Protests are far from over, and covering them in Lima is my colleague Matias Ebat. Matias, what's the situation right now?
Yeah, after weeks of protests, police has now restricted access to many public places. Like here, Plaza San Martin behind me, people are not anymore allowed to go there. And this happens everywhere in the country. Police is pulling up the repression. The security forces are repressing the protests more and more. And that leads to, on the other hand, to a calm down of the protests. The protest groups seem to reorganize, to regroup. And I think, on the other hand, as long as we will not have any political solution for this social crisis, I think protests may arise again soon.
An Amnesty International investigation has concluded Peruvian authorities have been using excessive force against the demonstrators. What exactly are they accusing the security forces of?
Erika Guevara, the head of Amnesty International's head of Amnesty International for the Americas. She presented evidence yesterday to President Boluarte and today to the public here in Lima for excessive use of force, such as unlawfully shots of live bullets on protesters, on peaceful protesters, in most of the cases by the Peruvian army and the police forces. Amnesty International found in total 46 cases of human rights violations, and they argue the prosecutors to act, and they announced investigations. Actually, they promised it to Amnesty International, but so far only the case in Ayacucho is making progress, where 24 protesters were killed. Many other cases are not progressing. They are still in an initial stage, as Amnesty International is reporting.
The protesters are demanding the new president, Dina Boluarte, step down and call for new elections. And she's actually urged Congress to pave the way for that, hasn't she? Are lawmakers going to give the people what they want?
It is not sure what is happening behind the scenes now in Peru. It's a big negotiation process going on. On the one hand, President Boluarte met yesterday with opposition leader Keiko Fujimori, and today, actually now she's meeting with other opposition leaders of the parliament. So it's not uncertain what will happen, what will be the outcome, and what is actually negotiated behind the scenes. Whether the parliament will vote for elections already this year. They should do it until tomorrow in order to start this election process for 2023, or if they might force Boluarte to resign. We don't know it, and we're gonna know it in the next days to come, I guess. Fact is, if no decision will be made, I think protests will arise again everywhere in the countryside, especially in the poorer regions of Peru.
Let's talk about that, because this is not a new problem, right? Peru has for long had a problem of many people, big parts of society feeling disenfranchised and feeling disconnected from the political elites in Lima, taking decisions on their behalf. So how can Peru be maneuvered out of this deadlock?
I think it's really a complicated process which could help out of this crisis. We were in the last days in the Andean regions, where we met farmers, small farmers, teachers of village schools, and they all have one important issue. They want better education for their kids. They want to have a better health system, health care. They want better infrastructure in their villages, and a better share of the wealth, which is in Peru. So that are demands they have for many decades already, but to solve this problem, which is a social problem of inequality, to solve this, I think this strong step towards a solution would mean a political multi-party initiative, which I can't see at the moment, because the parliament is split into many parties, and as well the negotiation with the president is difficult. It's a structural problem which Peru faces already for many decades, and I don't see a midterm solution on the horizon.
Matthias Ebert in Lima on the latest about these protests in Peru that we've been following for over 2 months now. Thank you so much.